when the council asked me if I would be willing to take one of the services during Advent, I happily looked at my schedule and said, yes, that for sure, I'd love to show up and do that with you. And then I was like, I get the love week? I mean, so much has been said in so many beautiful ways by poets and philosophers and musicians and in the sacred text and like blah, 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 love, 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 love. Musicals, love changes everything, right? There's so much.
All you need is love.
All you need is love. No, thanks, Margaret. And I wonder, what can we say today, or what might I offer that's not just more of the same, or just another shallow, I don't want to be Hallmark TV channel or whatever with that kind of happy ending. I want to engage love like in the Velveteen Rabbit that's real. Love that changes us, not just like, now we've got presents under the tree, but actually love that Mary celebrates, that changes. It's so huge, it's going to change the whole world. It will bring the mighty from their thrones. This is the kind of love. This isn't like, oh, thanks for the shortbread. This is some other kind of love. It's going to raise the lowly up. It's going to fill the hungry with good things. This is some kind of real love that is going to make a difference. It's going to wear the fur off the people around me. When Mary proclaims this kind of love, this kind of God, I think somebody's going to get hurt. Something's going to break. Something's going to change so radically that there will be brokenness. We can't proclaim the tearing down of a structure and a people and the raising up of another without also seeing there will be brokenness. So this Magnificat definitely shifts the conversation away from that happy Hallmark advertising. And it gives Mary this opportunity to restate the words of Hannah and Samuel, who is the prophet who will anoint Saul and also David, who spoke truth to power. She's recalling for her hearers a kind of power in the world, a political power, a social change that's massive. And yet it's connected to this very intimate experience of pregnancy. It's very close. It's the cousins. Mm-hmm. And what happens? Her soul magnifies this love. Magnifies, makes it bigger. Lots of the retellings of the Magnificat focus just on that first part where she's celebrating the Spirit's presence and miss that second part, which is the really radical bit, I think. But this love is so bold and so big, mighty, deposed. It's going to change the way we see things, the way I see things. This is the kind of love that will, in the to and fro of interaction, mean that our joints are going to get kind of loose as we bump together. We're going to inadvertently cause hurt. Not that's our intention, but that is going to result. This kind of love that Mary celebrates is active, like the Ursula K. Le Guin passage. It's love that's doing something and being something. It's going to require if this love will tear down and change structures, this love will also require the reconciliation, the forgiveness, the healing, the restoration and making new in relationship that will be required. Because we're still going to be in each other's future. Those that have been brought down or raised up, we're still going to be in each other's community. If Margaret and I have a tear down over something, we're actually going to still show up here together. We're going to be in each other's future. So what does that love look like? That love, that Magnificat love, that not only changes, but heals, restores in our intimate lives. I mean, my poor partner, what she puts up with from me. It's crazy. It's got to be love. It is. This constant restoring that's required. Because I inadvertently, or sometimes I would have to claim intentionally, am not my best self. This love that we're called to living, this active love, not observing, will require painstaking attention to relationship. I want to thank Sarah, who's here this morning, for introducing me to something exquisite. An image that helps me imagine this kind of restoring love. This is a Japanese art form called kintsugi, and it's a centuries-old form of repairing broken pottery. You know, have you ever swept your favorite jug or something off, and then you get out the super glue and... Okay, let's see how this works. This practice, this method called kintsugi, it means golden joinery, which in itself, my goodness, what a beautiful phrase. Golden joinery, it's the repair method that celebrates the unique history of each artifact by emphasizing the fractures, emphasizing the breaks, instead of hiding them or trying to mask them. In fact, the renewed piece is thought to be even more beautiful than the original. It's been revitalized with new life, but the fractures have been transformed into something stunning. I love this image, and I wonder, what does it look like in our relationships, in our communities of faith, like this one, to practice golden joinery in our relationship, in our families, in our community. The act of love inherent in restoring that which is broken, in which the fractures and bruises and wounds aren't masked or ignored, but are brought into the beauty of a new kind of wholeness. Sometimes the fracture is so big that the artist has to fill in whole gaps with gold, like big, big holes. I was imagining, like, what does this look like in real life, not just in the highfalutin metaphor, right? Because it's a pretty stunning metaphor. I once visited a Moravian church where I worshipped with them once. And the Moravians are a small group. Have any of you been in a Moravian worship before? So I could totally say anything. In the Moravian community, there's a moment before celebrating their equivalent of communion where there's a time of reconciliation. And sometimes we have language like that in our own liturgies, something about about that. But in the Moravian church, we were sitting and we'd been singing and everything. And then the person who was presiding asked for those who needed to be reconciled to do so before we essentially took communion. And I thought it was just a thing you say, you know. But all kinds of people stood up and started moving around in the sanctuary and talking to one another. And they were just saying, I'm sorry. Sorry, that thing that happened, like, are we okay? People were moving around in the worship saying, are we good? Yeah. They were being reconciled to one another before taking communion. That image came to mind like this. We're not trying to hide that there are difficult spots. We're not trying to overemphasize them either, but we're saying actually that's a beautiful part of who we are as a diverse community, whole and broken, growing and changing. Yesterday, I was driving somewhere and on the radio in the morning, there was one of those phone-in Christmas card things on CBC Radio, where people call in and they wish greetings to people who are not listening to the radio, probably. And I wonder, what are we doing here? But it's kind of heartwarming and I can't turn it off. I don't know any of the people, but I listen to it. And so this woman phones in, and to me this is a moment of this. She says, I want to wish Merry Christmas to my husband, who's moving in with his new girlfriend today. She was completely, it wasn't like jab, it wasn't hurtful, it was truly joyful. And she went on to say some other things about other family. I was like, wow, that's that. That's a woman saying, we're broken, I celebrate you. We're still part of something together. These acts of honest naming of the broken places, but in some way that's loving and changes.
Oh, wow.
I imagine it might look like one of us speaking without shame about depression or grief or other mental health challenges. It might look like neighbors being able to honor each other's political differences without feeling the need to build a giant wall so we don't even have to look at each other. It might look like our colonial communities saying, actually, we've failed in living up to the commitments of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We're broken. And we want to take action to restore that. It might look like a community of faith saying, we don't understand each other's theology. And even when we do, I don't think we agree. But we're in this together. We're in each other's future. I imagine this golden joinery, this sacred love, giving us new eyes, new ways to see each other and see ourselves in community. That the most important part of our community becomes the golden part. The fractured part restored. It seems somehow beautifully honest and real. And surely that kind of honest, active love is the great mystery of love we're welcoming this Advent. We're preparing for love that will turn the world upside down, will depose the mighty, will lift up the lowly, will fill the hungry with good things, and love that will restore to us wholeness when the to and fro of life wears us down and breaks us. This is the real love of Advent, that we prepare to welcome again.
Mm.